Welcome to our spring conversation on Chicago dance, sponsored by both the Newberry and the Chicago Dance History Project. It's wonderful to see you all here, especially on a night that looks like it possibly might be stormy. So welcome to spring in Chicago. Just a couple of things before I turn you over to Jenai Cutcher West, who will be our moderator tonight. She is also executive director of the Chicago Dance History Project, and she will introduce our panelists. First, if you haven't been in the adjoining room to look at the small pop-up exhibit, it will be available for 15 minutes after the program ends. It features materials from the Newberry dance collections about the dance companies and dancers who are talking with us tonight. We have to be out of the building by 8, so please be sure that you dart in there to get a look before we become pumpkins. Second, I hope you all received a grab bag. These bags contain duplicate dance programs, dance souvenir books, and photographs. We have copies of all this material in the Newberry collections. These are extras, and we don't want them back. So if you want to share them with your friends or exchange or do anything like that, we hope you enjoy doing so. But we do not want to participate in that. So thank you and enjoy the program. Jenai?
Okay. This isn't a union house. I can do this, I guess. Maybe. There we go. Hi, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Martha, and the rest of the Newberry team. We're so happy to be back here collaborating with the Newberry once again on what is sure to be a lively and informative evening. More on that in a second. But first, I just wanted to take a minute, in case you are not already familiar with the Chicago Dance History Project, just to explain who we are and what we do. My name is Jenai Cutcher West. I'm the director of CDHP. I also want to recognize the board members we have here tonight. I see Zach Wittenberg, Elizabeth Liebman, and Ginger Farley is somewhere, right? Yes, hi, Ginger. CDHP formed in 2014, but we launched publicly exactly 1 year ago today. At our first installment. God, it's only been a year. At our first installment of Conversations on Chicago Dance. That one addressed the history of tap dance here in the city. So in that year, we've been really busy researching and learning about Chicago-related dance histories, primarily through conducting one-on-one oral history interviews and through programming like this. So we've been documenting everything, the interviews and the events. That footage will eventually be shared publicly in an online archive. So we've got documenters here tonight too. Thank you, Naima and Maddie. So if you would like to know more about our work or you would like to help us do it, please come talk to one of us. You can check out, we had a really lovely article published in the Chicago Reader last week. I have a couple extra copies. Feel free to take one of those. Sign up for our mailing list. Check us out on all the social media platforms. And there we go. We hope to keep you updated with more events throughout the year. But tonight, we have got a rock star lineup for you, and essentially not just one, but 2 panels. So the way this is gonna work tonight is that I'm gonna start with 3 founding directors, all of whom have begun or are about to begin their 5th decade leading a dance company in Chicago. So we are going to delve into some of that history first. About halfway through, I'm gonna invite some second generation leaders from each company to join us in the conversation. And we're all here learning together, so I'm definitely going to leave some time at the end for your questions. So don't forget them. So that's how things are going to go down tonight. And, gosh, 40 plus years in the dance field, that's quite an achievement in and of itself. But it's also a lot of time to amass awards and honors and recognitions. And if I were to list all of them in the introductions of these three individuals to my left, it would take about half of our time together. So what I've done is I've posted links to everybody's bios on the CDHP website. I invite you to go there and learn more about these wonderful people. Their company websites also have a lot of information too. But for now, I'm going to keep the introduction short so we can get going with the discussion. And to my immediate left here, Dame Libby Komaiko. Dame Libby grew up in Evanston, Illinois. She's the founding artistic director of Ensemble Español, Spanish Dance Theater, as well as the American Spanish Dance and Music Festival. She is Professor Emerita of Dance at Northeastern Illinois University, where Ensemble Español is in residence, and where she developed the first complete academic program of study for Spanish dance and music at an American university. Ensemble Español has over 125 works in their repertoire, half of which were choreographed by Dame Libby. They tour nationally and internationally in countries like Australia, China, Mexico. They've toured the US, and they've performed at venues all over the city. Let's see, like Harris Theater for Music and Dance, North Shore Center for the Performing Arts, Auditorium Theater, Chicago Theater, pretty much you name it. Ensemble Español is celebrating their 40th anniversary season this year with, Dame Libby told me last night, over 300 events scheduled throughout the year, over 30 this month alone. So they're busy. And so we're happy, very happy to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Dame Libby Komaiko. To her left, we have Joel Hall. Chicago native of the Cabrini Green neighborhood, Joel co-founded the Chicago City Theater Company, which includes the Joel Hall Dancers, in 1974, shortly after graduating from Northeastern Illinois, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He's made over 70 works for the company, which choreography based in jazz technique with influences from ballet, modern, various street forms. They too have maintained a strong presence locally, nationally, internationally, with tours in the UK and throughout Europe, the former Soviet Union, performances at the Joyce Theater in New York, and in venues of all shapes and sizes throughout Chicago. I think some recent ones, you celebrated your 40th anniversary at the Logan Center not too long ago.
That's true.
And you performed Lush Life at the Auditorium Theater for the Billy Strayhorn Festival. So again, more on the website, but Joel Hall. And Hema Rajagopalan, our Bharatanatyam master, so a form of Indian classical dance. Hema made her solo debut performance in Chennai in 1956 and was performing regularly by the age of 10. She moved to Chicago from India in 1974, and it was here that she founded Natya Dance Theater, a professional touring company and school, also rooted in Bharatanatyam. Again, strong national, international presences. They're also presented regularly at the Dance Center of Columbia College, Ravinia Festival, Museum of Contemporary Art, and so on. They've also been featured in quite a few productions for PBS on TV. So, Hema Rajagopalan. And I'll actually save the introductions for the second generation leaders as we invite them up, and maybe you can help me with those too. I want to start by asking what maybe sounds like a simple question. I don't know if it is. A lot of people study dance. A lot of those dancers perhaps become choreographers. Not every person who studies dance forms their own company. And I'd like to know why that was the path you chose. Anyone can start.
Okay, do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, my story was might be a little bit different from the regular down the road, middle of the whatever we call it. But I had no intention of starting a dance company. So when I came to United States in 1974, I was already a soloist in India, and because of various reasons, bureaucracy, political climate there, I followed my husband, who came here for work and study, and actually wanted to take a break from dance and wanted to just explore the world, so to say. But when I came here, I found a dearth of cultural awareness in terms of Indian arts, in terms of Indian dance, and because of invitation from a few Indian people that I knew, they wanted me to perform, and I did. And they thought I was pretty good and wanted me to teach their children. And I didn't actually know how to teach because it was way long ago that I had started. When I was 6, I actually had my debut performance, so I didn't know how it began, so I wasn't very sure. But long story short, my gurus, my master teachers in India, helped me and said, no, go ahead and it'll just come to you. So I started teaching. So when I started teaching my students, they became accomplished dancers down the road. So then I needed to find a platform for them who I thought were pretty accomplished. And that's how organically they started, we started becoming a company, known as a company. And that's how my company started, organically, I would say. I had no intention of really starting a company. But then I stayed in Chicago.
And we're glad you did.
We're so glad.
What about you?
So,
What about you, Joel? Is it an ambition?
Well, my story is very similar to Hema's. I my company actually started at Northeastern Illinois University. I was an undergraduate student there and a graduate student in the 70s. The 70s were a very turbulent period in Chicago. And there were people like Black Panther Party, SDS, Young Lords, all of these marvelous, marvelous, marvelous people who were looking for a way of change. Northeastern was one of the more radical universities in the city, and I was very much a part of the sociology department there, and actually did my undergraduate work in sociology and then went into graduate work in social science at Northeastern. So I really consider myself a social scientist doing my work through movement, actually. But my company, I think that every choreographer is, because those are statements. We're making statements about our culture, right? So actually we're scientists that are speaking about the times that we live in. My company evolved out of the group of dancers that I was working with at Northeastern under the direction of Miss Marge Hobley, who was head of the dance department. And Marge really encouraged me and anyone else really to get a craving for dance. It wasn't a passion at that point. It was something called craving. So that I would call craving. And that's what I always wanted. I craved to be in class. You know, I would walk from the north side all the way downtown just to take class because I didn't have money to take the bus. But I'd walk. So that was kind of my beginnings here. I'm from Cabrini Green. I love that neighborhood. It was a real neighborhood before it changed into what I don't know what it is now. But the people that actually lived there were all marvelous people. And all of the stories and negative things that you hear about the people that live there are absolutely false, and they're misguided, because our people looked after each other. Our parents looked after other people's children, and other people's parents looked after me. So there was nothing I could do bad. Okay, without my mother finding out before I got home. And all she'd have to do is look. And that was it. It was not happening again. So getting back to Northeastern, the company became the Joel Hall Dancers as a result of the dancers in the company deciding to call it that. So it was organic also. It evolved from the dancers that I was working with at Northeastern.
And Libby?
Ask you the question again.
So why start a company as opposed to any other route you could have chosen as a dancer?
Well, actually, I'm the daughter of musicians. My brother went to Juilliard on complete scholarship. My mother was the first prize winner at age 11 in the Auditorium Theater playing Chopin and Albéniz and Grenouilles. I grew up with music all around me. I had a laundry basket. They put me by the piano. I'm the second child of 4. My sister played in the All-City Orchestra, and my other brother played the drums. And I just sat there. I don't know if they thought I didn't know how to do anything, because I just sat there with the chubby cheeks playing with a string and watching. And all of a sudden, my mother said, one day, you just got up and started running. One day, you got up and said a sentence. You were just absorbing it. So I had studied with Gus Giordano when we moved to Evanston, because I grew up in Michael Reese Hospital. Sorry, they tore it down. And I really loved theater and singing and dancing, and I loved all of it. And when my parents took me to see the Nutcracker, when I was 5 years old, I was at the edge of my seat. We were in the first balcony. I could just stand up, and it was just like, it was magic to me. It was magic to me when the curtain opened, and I said to my mother, Mom, look at that little blue light up there. Well, she turned to me and said in her dry humor, my daughter, Cecil B. DeMille. And I got it, like 30 years later. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. But in the meantime, when we moved to Evanston, I started studying jazz on Tuesday and Thursday with Gus Giordano, and he was studying all the musicals at Evanston High School at that time. So I was in all the musicals. I was choreographing. I was going to chorus. I loved it. There were things I couldn't understand, but, especially in algebra, it was very difficult. Geometry was easier. But at any rate, I thought I'd love to go into musical comedy. And if I can last for 5 years and be a dance captain, I'd like to get married and have kids. And I would love to teach. I saw my parents teaching all that. It's exciting. It's exciting. However, I had auditioned for the Man of La Mancha, the road company, that was at the Schubert Theater. And I was on the final callback list because they said, are you 5'6"? Well, I was just, at that time, I shrunk a little bit. I was just a little, I would say, oh yes, I am. So I saw my name on the final callback list, and that very same week, after being in a car accident with a guy, a saxophone player, I had just gotten the thing off from around my neck, so I was wearing my hippie clothes, with the turtleneck black and the long boots, the fringe, and everything. So I went to watch my girlfriend audition for Jose Greco because he had studied with Elisa, who taught the Cancino family, Rita Hayworth. And I thought, well, I'll go watch the auditions. But Greco came up to me and asked Elisa, does she dance? Yeah, she's very good. He said, well, why don't you audition? Oh, okay. And Nana Lorca, the quintessence of Spain, who was his wife at that time, said, all you have to do is follow her. So I did. Well, he said, are you coming to the concert? It was at the Opera House. I said, oh, yes, I have my ticket. He said, will you come backstage and see me? Well, we had an appointment, all my friends, to go to Old Town in those days. And I couldn't stop talking about Jose Greco. And plus, my parents were up when I came home a half an hour later than my curfew, waiting for me. And my mother said, Elisa called. She had dinner with Jose Greco, and he wants you for the company. I thought, oh, okay. So my parents drove me down there to West Baden, Indiana, that beautiful place. And that's where there was a 6-week training period, and it was with the Greco company, with Maestro Muchado, who was the music director, Paul Hakon, who was the Norwegian, who was, loved by Norwegian ballet companies, beloved. And so everything went fine at the beginning, the first half of the day. I didn't know about Spanish culture. I'm from Lithuanian, Russian heritage, and I married a Norwegian, what else was here? Irish guy for several years, not now. But at any rate, so I thought I would try. And how did I know? I was so excited. My parents drove me there. And we got there. The first person I met was Juan Mata, who was one of the founders, he and his wife, of the National Ballet of Spain. And he was practicing his English, and he helped me. And I had a roommate. Yeah, it was wonderful. The afternoons, after you have your big lunch, then started flamenco. Well, from tap and all these other forms, after the second day, for weeks, I could not walk down the stairs. My shin, everything hurt. Every single thing hurt. But I didn't want to tell anyone. So I was just rubbing on arnica, anything I could, just to get into class all the time and keep going. And then we went on tour and started Carmen with the Cincinnati Opera, and it was just wonderful. It was wonderful. So they said, why don't you come to Spain? So I came home, and I thought, well, I better not say anything to Mom. I better tell Dad. I just saved all my money. And I said, Dad, as soon as I get to Madrid, I'll go on the Telefonica and I'll call and tell Mom I'm here, because I know this is not going to be hard. She doesn't want a country with dictatorship and kept themselves out of the war. This is not going to be something that's going to be very palatable for her. So that's what I did. It was one of these old warplanes, and they were smoking black tar cigarettes. I'd never been across the ocean before. And the light fell out on my lap, and I thought, oh, I hope we make it. We came at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was just, I was reading Iberia, James and Mrs. Iberia. I just finished. It's just like Iberia. They're sweeping the streets. Look at this. It's fantastic. And I had set up to stay in a pension. I didn't know that the whole army was staying in that pension. You have a very stark room, and then you wait with your soap and your bathrobe, and you wait in line to take a shower. And there was me, maybe 2 other girls, and the whole army waiting to take their shower. It was wonderful. It was my most wonderful trip, because I went there at the end of August, and I came back around Thanksgiving, and everything was so much cheaper then. And I was buying shawls. I was just doing everything I could, and taking classes. I was just doing whatever I could do, getting on old trains, driving, doing everything I could do. Because I thought, well, maybe I won't be back. Little did I know I was going back and back and back and back and back. And so once I came back to Chicago, I thought, well, wouldn't this be lovely if I could do some lecture concerts with my mom, and she could play all these pieces. I'll get a little guitarist if I can get a guitar. And while I'm changing costume from classical Espanol to folklore to flamenco, and then we have an audience participation. It's a 1-hour concert. We have them learn how to do the palmas and step their feet, and get them to stand up. This will be, it'll be fun. I'll do this for a while, and then I'm going to start teaching and get married and have kids. Don't make any plans. That's not what happens. That's not what happens. Things happen differently or a different order. At any rate, I went backstage, and he pulled me out. He said, this girl's going to be in my company. Well, you can't imagine how excited I was. I didn't want anything else. I didn't want to do anything. I was so excited. Well, when I got there, because I was so tall and thin, and Luis Rivera, I don't know if anyone remembers him, but he was like a George Chakiris. He was very tall and lean, and we were both the same. And I learned all the capes with the men, how to go on the knees. I learned everything. And I was studying Spanish history. I was just going through the whole thing. I hardly slept. I was just having such a fantastic time. Then I came to Northeastern to do the concert. And there were 250 students, actually, so there were 850 students. They were against the fire code. They were sitting on the stairs. So they said, and Marge Hobley was there also, and she said, listen, we have an artist in residence program. Would you like to stay here? And we could develop some courses. I learned about academia with Marge. She helped me tremendously to learn all about all of these things. And I did travel 300 miles a week driving in my car to teach all these other classes. I was putting my husband through graduate school at DePaul. I thought, well, let's see, let's take some of the students. What do? Would you do a Spanish piece? Yeah. Let's see, a little Brazilian music, maybe Brasilias Brasileiras. Let's get a cave for the guy, and then for the 5 girls, give them bands. Let's teach them how to do this. And then we had all these multiple we had danced all together. That's how we all met. And it was wonderful. I had just a wonderful time. And it was wonderful studying, and I loved it. And I would get to the studio early every day, and with I put my dance clothes on, my skirt and everything, right under my coat, and just put the boots on and get in there early and get the music on and start going. I never really thought about that I wanted to be an artistic director or that I was founding anything. I just thought, okay, there's 7 students here. We started with 7. There are 40 now with the youth company. They're waiting in line. They're waiting in line to get in. And from 3 years old, we have classes from 3 years old. And there's, let's see, on the community nights that they had to leave early. We have rehearsals with the Chicago Symphony. That's this weekend. For the children's concerts. But I think she's got a student on community night that's 80 something, and everybody's still going. The thing about it is people said, well, if you go into musical comedy or anything that you're on the floor, I thought, man, now I can't sit down on the floor, stand up. But at that time, I just was so involved with things, and people say, well, Spaniards would say, listen, why don't you come to Spain? You'll be a phenomenon there, an American being classical, dancer like this, and be able to do flamenco and folklore. And I love jumping. I really love jumping. And I thought, wait a minute. I would like to develop something right here in the middle of the country. We have such a great city. It's so diverse. It's fabulous city. And there's so much music here and art, and people are interested in this. We have so many cultures. We have 26 languages at Northeastern, and there are 50 in the Albany Park area. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I thought, well, whoever wants to audition from the students, and I just taught the classes with great joy, and working 12 hours a day was a norm. 18 on sleeping on the bus, sleeping. It seemed like this is wonderful. I got to see the whole United States. I went to Poland with the dancers. And I've been, and once you get into Europe, it's a lot cheaper to get the tickets. You could travel around. Did I ever think of being harder to get to be an artist? I never thought about it, really. It's just like you just start, and then you involve your dancers. You look at the dancers you have, the music's in your head. Once you've got that, I had the sounds of the feet, because the feet are much easier than playing castanets. The castanets take a long time for a lot of people. For me, it didn't. I was practicing all the time inside of a muff. In the train going downtown, I'd play. One man kept looking at me. When the train stopped, I'd stop and I'd practice. I'd stop. And just practicing, because I love the sound of it. That sound is beautiful. And all of a sudden, it's 10 years, it's 20 years, it's 30 years, it's 40 years. Oh, I made a documentary. Oh, I did this, I did this. I don't even remember where the time flew by so fast. And all of a sudden they said, oh, it's time for you, it's time for you to retire. Retire? I'm doing more work now than I ever did when I was working, except I don't have the state of Illinois papers to deal with. And that's a joy right there, right there. But, never did I believe that. I didn't even think about it. I just kept going on the mission. Going on the mission.
So I'm curious, because it wasn't a specific intention of any of yours, and it evolved organically from the specific circumstances. Where did you turn to for resources and education? Running a company is a lot more than dancing and choreographing. Were there specific programs here, or who were your mentors in the management portion of the company?
Looks like I'm the leader speaking. It's okay. Well, in my case, I think it was, I was also performing a lot as a soloist. My musicians used to come from India, and we used to perform, we used to be on tour 6 months in a year. Apart from me teaching my students who were developing into these accomplished dancers, and I was so busy with going on, all this was going on for a long time that I lost track of how much money personally I was spending on, my husband was spending on, on bringing these musicians, and because I was just passionately involved in sharing the art form. And believe it or not, I have performed from 1980 on to 1994, 95, every year. And a range of various diverse venues. It would be a library foyer sometimes, or it would be a museum where there would be no room and there would be just a few people, or it would be a university setting where it would be a presenting series. So it'd be a gamut of things that, and it didn't matter to me what remuneration they paid me. All I was happy about was, well, I'm performing. That was very important that I keep my musicians engaged, and the touring was the most important thing, and being on the stage was the high of my lifetime, in the sense, my high of living, because that's when I really, really felt most satisfied, satiated, and of course, the diverse range of audiences and the range of numbers. I had to reach out to large audiences, sometimes proscenium stages. So my art form developed, and I had to kind of reach out. So reaching out was the main purpose, and I was lost in all this. And so in 1994, we came to realize that my husband was in fact spending all this money to just make it happen. And so one day I found in my home there was an accountant and my lawyer sitting, and they advised me that, I was just wondering what they're doing here, and it was just over coffee. And I had just come back from the studio, and then I was informed that, one of them asked me this question: is this a passion or is this a hobby? So I didn't know what to answer. I said, well, it's my passion, but it's not my hobby. I don't like the idea of it being my hobby. It's not my hobby. It's my life. It's my passion. It's my life. And I don't call it a hobby. And of course, it's business. I mean, of course, I make money, don't I? I mean, I also bring in money because I was thinking I was doing that. But unfortunately, it was coming, but it wasn't enough to keep up this game of bringing musicians and touring. And at that very moment, it was just God sent. As I said, my whole life has been an organic thing. And I want to say it's up somewhere someone's watching me, or someone's taking care of me and watching me do or propelling me to go forward. There was an institution called the Artsbridge. I don't know, I think everybody's aware of it. And I got a call probably very same week from the executive director there, and who said that we've heard about you and your performances, and we would like to absorb you and give you an arts administration kind of foundation and what to do, consulting and so on and so forth. So in my case, it was more from 1995 that I got that kind of a input. And then I had a regular office, and we had an administrator, and we got the consulting and so on and so forth, and we went into a different spiel, I would say.
My dance company started out as Chicago City Theater Company, and Chicago City Theater Company was under the direction of Joseph Ehrenberg, who was my former partner, and he and I founded the organization in, I believe, 74. And Joseph was the backbone of management for the company and was the person who actually made sure that everything that I was doing was going to be done. And I really didn't think about where the money was coming from or how it was coming. I just put it on the stage. It was just go to the studio, do your work, and get it on the stage, no matter what. So I really wasn't thinking in terms of management, in terms of how business thinks of management. I was thinking in terms of management of dancers, of people, of management of choreography and of methodology and ways in which I could present my ideas. So during the Herald at Washington administration, Mr. Washington invited my company to become the ambassadors for the city of Chicago as we were touring Europe. And we were invited to Glasgow for the Mayfest. And they were exchanging a dance company here with, I think it was a theater company that was coming from there here. And we were going there. So that was our first tour of Europe. And we went to Glasgow and tore the place up. Because they had never seen black dance like that. Okay. It was very serious. It was fabulous. And so at the end of the performance that night, this gentleman came up to me and said, Mr. Hall, would you be interested in coming to London to perform in our festival? Because one of the companies from New York was not able to come. Could you come now after leaving Mayfest? And we were not able to, as I had other performances here in Chicago or back on the mainland here. And we had been obliged to do that. But the following year, we went back and we tore that shit up again. Excuse my stuff. I'm speaking real, you know, I keep it real. Especially South Side, baby, we gotta keep it real. So it was the launching, really, of an extended performance career in Europe for over 11 years, consistently. We were there several times a year. We'd get home for a month, 2 months, and we were back in Europe. We would be home for another week. We'd be back in Europe. We had a passport to go everywhere. And being an emissary also enabled us to share with some of the dignitaries of these marvelous countries that we were visiting. And our company ended up in places that I never dreamed of. I mean, Bergen, Norway, for instance. I mean, who would have known? Bergen is lovely. The Soviet Union at that time. Moskva and Leningrad. Fabulous, fabulous cities, although very poor. And I have one little story to tell about that, and then I'll move on. But we were performing in Leningrad, and after a rousing ovation from these people in this theater, these people came from all of the aisles. They were throwing flowers on the stage, and they were throwing stuff up. And this little girl runs up, and she hands me flowers, and it was just so magical. And people started handing us their meal tickets, their food tickets that they buy food with in gratitude. Now, when you have that kind of experience, it really moves you to the point that you realize why you do what you do. I know why I dance. It's not to get meal tickets from people that don't have it. It's to engage their souls in a way that they feel that they have to give something back because we've given so much. And that's the reason that I think all of us dance. And management now, for me, is new, because we have a new executive director who's a bitch on wheels. He is very persistent. He is very difficult. Very difficult. But the man knows what he's doing. So I have to give him his props. His name is Mr. Jim Schiffelbein. He's not here tonight, but I'm doing it publicly because I don't often tell him. But now we have management that is really looking out for the dancers in a way that they have not been looked out since the passage of Joseph. Joseph died in the early 90s, and we've been wandering since. Yeah. And then I met my current husband, Craig, in 1998, and we've been married for 18 years. So it's a fabulous life, darling. It's fabulous. Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Management. I asked my father a few questions, and then I went to the Illinois Arts Council in 1974, 75, to begin a not-for-profit. We got our papers in 76, because we're really 41 years old, but the papers didn't come till then. And then I went to Lawyers for the Creative Arts. I started going to places that I knew were public places to figure out what to do. Mentors, well, I saw how Nana Lorca was. I saw how Lolo Montes worked with her dancers. He was in the American and Carmen Amaya's company that's like saying Ana Pavlova for flamenco. And she, by the way, she was such a great gypsy from Barcelona. She came from some spirit. She was a tiny little thing. And she used to knock her fingers. She was always doing rhythms, and she'd knock her fingers on the desk, and they had to kick her out of school. But she was so smart. She was so smart, and she danced in pants. The first Carmen Amaya, the first female flamenco dancer to dance in pants and do a man's faruca better than the guys. I mean, just unbelievable. So she was very revered. But there have been many before that. But learning about management was kind of a trial, and I was doing all the grants. I was here 30 years ago. I just couldn't remember where it was. I used to come and do the fundraising. I did all the grants. I said, Dad, how do we do this? He said, well, come and get your questions ready, and come on Sunday, and we'll sit there and do it. Well, I would be up till 3:30 in the morning grading papers from the university, everything. But I just started to delve right into everything. And I was doing everything. Then Irma, who had to leave, they had a rehearsal with the Chicago Symphony now for the weekend. But she was in the first company. Her father was on her board, and he said, he asked her he said, I want to bring you to see a concert. And as she said last night in the dialogue, she said, I was at the edge of my seat. There were 5 or 7 dancers at the time, and I had choreographed all the dancers for that. And I was dancing full out, until I was 60 years old. Well, 59, and still then playing castanets with orchestras and all kinds of things. But she said she was at the edge of the seat. She said, I want to be one of them up there. That's what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And then Jorge, who left with her, who's also dancing still, this is like our family now. It grew and grew. as things went by, it's like, okay, this grant, how do we do this? Read this, read it over, figure out what this means. What does this mean? Call them up, ask them. If they deny you the grant, let's see, ask one of the board members, can you write a letter? Will you please write a letter? I know you can. Will you please? And see why we were denied. The denial came from the fact that I'm not Latin, I'm not Spanish. I would got big recommendations from the Puerto Rican Union, everybody, to go to places to get enormous grants, and I'd go in there with a beautiful grant written with the proposal, with the budget, everything, copies left over, and we'd be denied. And they'd say, well, because you didn't meet all the requirements, blah, blah, blah. Then you find out from another, oh yeah, because the director, the founder is not Latin or Spanish, how would she know? Well, I know about life, I know what's in the heart. I know what flamenco means. I know all of it. The heartbeat is the singing. It all comes from the singing. And the guitar is the blood rushing through your veins. I've got it down. I'm studying about humanity, and we're all the same. You know, everything. We come into this world, we go out, and we have to relate to each other. We connect with each other. And then people would say, well, how do you do all this? Well, because I'm involved in life and humanity. We have the concerts for the schools. I love things for the children. I'd be in my costume with the flower in my hair and the castanets. I'd be calling the show, and then I'd run out there and do my dance, do whatever dance, come back, lecture, do everything. How do you do that? Well, the spirit comes from it's a circle. It's a big circle, and it keeps coming back and around and around and around. So the mentors, well, my parents, I have one mentor now she's 83 years old, Doctora Angelina Pedroso, who I went to very first to ask her to be on the board at 6:45 in the morning, the only time she had. So I got up and went in there. I said, I know you're a very busy person. You're president of the faculty senate, and you run 17 committees, and you're teaching all your classes. She said, oh no, if you want to get something done, always ask a busy person. A busy person will always organize and find a way to do it. A person with nothing to do will always say, no, they don't have time. Well, time is relative, and time is about rhythm. Time is about the heartbeat, and time is about how you think about life and what you think about life, and it's just a number. Well, it's just a number, and so let's just keep moving on in time, and let's keep going. Shall we? Thank you.
Lots of on-the-job training, too.
On the job, lots of on-the-job
Yeah.
training, and it's wonderful because then you become a student for life. It's wonderful.
So what I'm hearing a lot is, obviously how intrinsic dance is to all of you and who you are. And I imagine vice versa too, that your companies are so imbued with your identities. I'm curious if you could talk about how has the evolution of your company paralleled or not your own evolution and growth as a person and an artist?
For me, I would say that Chicago is a great, diverse, eclectic city. I have found, I've been to all other cities, probably I've not been there for that long, but I think Chicago is my home where I teach and where I communicate with a lot of diverse kind of cultures and audiences. And what it has done to me as an individual is my own growth in terms of being sensitive to the other cultures, being aware of what the other person does. And I'm always curious. My curiosity has always been there the first thing that I did when I came to this country in the early 1974, 75, was to fall in love with jazz music. When I've heard Western classical music, but I've heard jazz music, I think, in India, but I never knew that was jazz, but something that drew me. But so when I turned on the radio, I loved jazz music. I used to watch ballet, a lot of ballet on WTTW. And there I've, of course, various platforms, and any kind of movement used to just touch me and move me. And I always used to find very, very curiously, I always wanted to, intrigued by what the other art forms did to me. I was always sensitive to it. So it, in some way, form or the other, it always kind of inspired me to move forward in my dance. And I think that along with being put in a platform sometimes, many times, for example, we have worked together and I've worked with modern dance companies, I've worked with African dance companies, I've worked with other genres of art form like the symphony music, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. What it did to me is to just expand my art form. When I say it expanded my art form, I want to say that it expanded me as an individual. So that's what is reflected, I think, in my creations, in Nadia's creations. So I've always talked about, I always find myself saying, here we are connecting, we are together. And I find, and I know that my daughter Kritika would always, when she was younger, she would always say, why are we always preaching all the time? We're always preaching. Why can't we just be entertaining? Why can't we just entertain like the other dance forms do? You always have to say something like, we are uplifting, let's join hands. I want to see how we are connected. We want to feel holistic and we want to move together. And I find myself that at that point, I used to kind of rebel or talk and say, no, Kritika, it's our philosophy. We need to find this, we need to connect this. But yet I have yielded to what she had been saying this, I think maybe 10, 15 years ago even, to say that, yes, bring in some entertaining component. Just entertain. Don't elevate and educate and all that kind of things. Just entertain. But I find even then, even though I do that, I do entertain and I do elevate and I do educate in my creations, but I find I always come back to the same thing somewhere in the bottom, somewhere. I'm saying, okay, you know this, I'm saying the same thing somewhere or the other. And it has expanded me even more, I find. So I think it is running parallel in my case.
Mr. Social Scientist.
The social scientist speaks. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah,
How
sure.
it runs parallel, how does the company run parallel to my growth, the growth of the company?
The evolution of the company.
The
in your own,
evolution of the
yes,
company.
yeah.
Well, the company is a constant, live, living group of people. So it is evolutionary. It is always changing. There are different people that come. There are different people that go. Most of the people that come usually end up staying for a while. I'm very blessed in that I have people that will stay and do my work and not necessarily get paid because they want to do my work. I think that's quite an honor to have that kind of devotion from dancers. My objective in life is to pay my dancers for their work because they work very hard, as you all know how difficult that is. The evolution of the dancers has evolved my thinking. So as they evolve, I have to be able to evolve and grow with them. They actually lead me into where I need to be thinking about what to do next. Because that is always what I have in mind, are these people that have devoted so much of their time, their energies, and their belief system in what it is I am trying to communicate as an artist. Now, I will add that we've talked a lot about diversity here. on this panel. And I agree that you see a very diverse panel here. But in terms of the art form of dance, I think that it is reflective of the overall culture. So that if you took a diagonal slice of America and you looked at all of those layers between, I don't think you would think it was so diverse. Because when you look at the top, it's like that 1% that they talk about. The arts really reflect that also. So I think that we have to be very, very careful when we talk about diversity, because diversity means diversity. It does not mean a person in a company representing. Excuse me. I'm sorry for saying that, but it's true. So I'm just being truthful and honest with you. I've been in this city for 40 years and I've worked my ass off. Okay? And I've seen people come into this city and work for 2 weeks and get thousands of dollars worth of grants. Why? Because of my melanin. But this is something that I'm very, very, very proud of. You see? I'm very happy to be a Black African-American gay man in this city that is a choreographer that has been able to be noticed, because there have been many, 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 many others prior to me. Mr. Joseph Holmes, for instance, Deidre is here. Mr. Wilbur Bradley, Miss Jewel McLaurin, Miss Ellis, Lucille Ellis, Mr. Tommy Gomez, numerous, but we never hear of these people. All we hear about is certain people. So I just want to put it on record that when we talk about diversity in the arts, we really need to look at what we're talking about. And when you say it, you better be able to back it up. And I mean really back it up. If you look over there at those group of people sitting over there, those are my dances. When I say diversity, I mean diversity, because that is America. America is a diverse country, whether we like it or not. Okay? So we have to change that perspective, I think, of how we look at funding for these companies. There are companies on the South and West Side that people don't even know about. They never hear about them. Why? They're out there, they're dancing, just like everybody else. Okay? I didn't mean to get into this tonight, but I did mean to get into this tonight. So I had to say what I had to say, because I think that it's very important that that we understand that. And let's not play like we're different, because we're not. We reflect the same as every other part of this culture. And part of that is to change that so-called diversity into something that is really reflective of diversity. As a jazz dance company, which is an American art form, I think that my company needs to reflect that. And that's why it looks like that. And I would not have it look any other way. And I'm very, very, very proud of what we've been able to accomplish in our career.
Thank you. How did the dancers evolve?
Thoughts on evolution?
Thoughts on evolution. Well, the dancers evolve from having so many guest artists come from the very beginning, from Spain. We brought them from Spain, some of them in New York, and different, if they're from whoever's danced in Spain a lot. And they start to learn on their own, and we encourage them. And I always have, even in the children's classes, to create something. Use your imagination and make some steps. Put things together and let's see what we get. Find the music. And we have to approve, we sit and approve the music, and Irma and Jorge would have to leave. And then we get together and have a meeting, but it evolves slowly. And I want them to have their own voice, but remember what the history that they're representing, where Spain was, where during the Second World War, where Spain is geographically, because you have Portugal to the west, the African continent to the south, and France and going into Europe to the east. And you can go anywhere. And they were kept out of the World War II because, they made a deal with Mussolini, and then they didn't go in. So it's difficult. It's difficult to say. But as the dancer, the evolution of the dancers comes from them being able to create and feel that they are part of that creation. So one story is that on a Friday night, I was creating one work for the festival, and I gave a very difficult pattern of steps with castanets going at a different speed, and where the turns came and counter beats and everything. I had this sound in my head. And I came back on Monday and they were showing me this stuff. I said, who gave you that difficult step? They said, but you did. Really? Well, what do you think? Well, how would you like to fix it? I would like to hear your opinion. Tell me what you think. And they started to go, well, if I put this here and that there. And I saw that they were starting to invert, revert, listen to the music, go. And we got a beautiful phrase of movement out of it. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. Okay, now they're starting to get their own voice. Now they're starting to teach. Go watch them teach, not just to see their choreographies at the end. I want to see how they got the children to that place. Did they put the history in there? Did they put the culture in there? Did they get it so that they understand? It's a very rich cultural history. There are 49 provinces in Spain. There are all those islands around. Where it is geographically, how it went out, how it came in. So there's so much, and so as the evolution of it is that each dancer, Irma is getting her own voice now very beautifully. Jorge has a wonderful voice. He's working on administration now, but he's still dancing very well, very well. I want them to stay dancing as long as they can, because it's a blast. I always have a good time. It's fun. It's fun to be on the stage, but it's not the only thing. There's so much more, because I remember when I had to just start playing castanets with quartets on the stage, I'd do it in between other numbers. So I'm not dancing anymore. And one of my past dancers came in from out of town. She said, "Oh, you're dancing all right. You're just sitting in the chair. You're always, your body is in motion." Well, let's think about it. When you're in your mother's room, you're dancing, you come around, you come out, what's the first thing? The cry for life. You're dancing, you're singing. It's all the movement of life going on. So that's the evolution constantly, that they get their own voices, that they learn how to say it well, and that they really make it their own. That's my objective.
And you've been mentioning Irma. I just want to make sure everyone knows this is Irma Suarez Ruiz, co-artistic director of Ensemble Español.
She's just promoted, so can I do this? Of course you can.
Unfortunately, she had to go to rehearsal, but it is time to invite our other second-generation leaders from Natia and Joel Hall dancers to come on up and join us.
Yes, please.
And maybe, actually, Hema and Joel, do you mind briefly introducing them to us? Sure. Come on up. Hema Rajagopalan and Jackie Sinclair.
This is Jackie Sinclair. Jackie is Associate Director for the Joe Hall Dancers. And Jackie has been with me for, I think, about 30 years? 25 years. So it was a natural progression for her to move for the Associate Director position, because she has learned my work extensively. And she's a brilliant woman who choreographs incredible work herself. And I feel that it is only, Jackie was really the only person to take over my mission and that I would have faith and understanding that she would follow the mission, because the mission is the most important thing. So Jackie, I'm sorry, you want to introduce your associate? That's Jackie.
And Kritika Rajagopalan is the Associate Artistic Director of Natya Dance Theatre. And as Joel Hall introduced Jackie, Kritika has been with me for
43 years, Mom.
40 years. So in terms of understanding my work or what I do, she has been in and out of literally growing up as a tiny tot. She used to dance all around me, inadequately at that time, but there was a she was put in a class formally, I want to say in the year perhaps 1976 or 78, somewhere there, but she was never in the class, so to say, and it took her a while to understand that I am her teacher. So cutting all that down, she has formally trained not only from me, but from my gurus in India, and I would say that she's from now, it's not the mother speaking, it's the teacher in me speaking, that she is a wonderful artist, very accomplished, and has her own, established her own credentials. And she's a very good choreographer, and administratively, she has a marketing background in her degree that she earned in Chicago. And she has been always my right hand and knows my in and out of what I do. Kritika Rajagopalan.
Incidentally, tomorrow is Take Your Daughter to Work Day, so y'all are a day early.
I'm not around, sorry.
So I have a question for the two of you way down there, and then I'm going to pose a big one for all of you to fight over, and then I do want to save time for some questions from the audience too. So for you two, I was wondering if you could describe sort of the process of not only coming up within the company, but then taking on more of a leadership role, and maybe talk about the responsibilities you feel like you have, especially towards maintaining the legacy that has already been built.
My first experience with dance was jazz, and that is what attracted me to the form. I felt that it was very much a part of who I was. It allowed me to express myself. And then as I started to study, I went to Columbia College where there wasn't any jazz. And so the minute I graduated, I thought, I got to get back to Joel's class. I had taken a couple of classes prior to going. And went to Joel's studio, took class, and Albert Williams, rest his soul, was my teacher that day. And he said, I have an injury. We have a concert in 2 weeks. Can you? And I said, well, of course. Yes, this is what we do, right? So Joel was in the audience, and we spoke afterwards. And shortly after that, I started apprenticing and then became a member of the company. Out of necessity, I think, seeing what needs to be done, I became rehearsal director. We needed, when there's a lack of something, then you just fill in, you're not just an understudy, you fill in what needs to be done. You want the work to be seen, you want it to be right. So I became rehearsal director, and then after that, assistant artistic director. So I am Joel's daughter too. in the essence, in the sense that, you know, his vision is very much aligned with mine. So it felt like everybody else, a natural progression. It wasn't something that was forced. It was just something that felt like home and something that I needed to communicate.
Remind me again of the question in its order.
Yeah, well, the process of coming up in the company and assuming more of a leadership role within it, and how you feel you're maintaining the legacy that's been built by Hema.
So, most of what she said was true. And everything Jackie said was true as well. I think being brought up in the company, it was, for lack of a better way of saying it, it was an inevitable transformation of becoming a part of what the style is, what the rigor is, what the discipline is. Bharatanatyam comes with it many, many rules, but it also comes with boundaries that are meant to be challenged. And I think one of her styles is to actually challenge those boundaries. When I worked through to taking on many of the roles, I was as well rehearsal directors, but teaching. I think I started teaching when I was 15 years old, and running company rehearsals. And I left, went to India, came back after a solo tour for a year, and I was running the ship and already choreographing side by side with her. And there were many discussions on how to choreograph or not to choreograph. The mission is the same. The vision is the same. I think we both think along those lines. For me, what her legacy is to consistently be evolving, is to consistently see what we have as our structure and to grow from it. And as much as I keep talking about understanding how she teaches, how it's done, what its choreography should mean, where is the message, it is also something that comes with what else. And for me, that what else will always travel with everything that we do. What more can we do? How do I challenge the existing choreography? Does it need to be what it is today? How do I speak to the audience as they are today? The audience that you do today is not the audience that you see tomorrow. So what is going to alter within my performance to speak to that? Legacy, discipline, choreography is consistently changing. A dance that we choreographed yesterday is going to be something different tomorrow. And the vision we see today may always be consistent and may always be far-reaching, but how we get to that vision will always change.
That's actually an excellent segue into my last question before I open it up, so get ready. What, and this is for anybody, what plans have you implemented or will implement to ensure that your companies have a future?
Well, we're looking for the next generation after Irma and Jorge. I'm donating half of my library to the Northeastern Library of all the thousands of dance books in every dance form that I have and music books. We want it to keep going long after we're gone. What will happen when we're not here? Who's going to continue this? Because when I came to Northeastern, there were 8% Latino, Hispano students. There are 38% now. There are no oceans to cross. We put those dictatorships in there. They keep coming. They don't want to leave. Nobody wants to leave their own tierra. But they, politics make things very difficult. But it's always there in our minds, how we're going to go forward, keep it going.
I share that with Libby. I think the future is always the next generation. We have a new generation of dancers that are, when I say new, I mean younger than me, and who are doing work on their own. They're very, it's very important that they understand the importance of continuing the mission. And I try to instill that with them, and Jackie does too. It is because we want to be around for 200 years at least. Seriously. Not me personally, but in terms of the mission and in terms of the message of what it is we have to say, I think that we have to plan very, very carefully for that. And the only way that we can do that is through the people that we are working with, because they are continuing, they're learning the style, they're learning the choreography, they're learning the mission, they're learning all of that. This is handed down through generations. And it has been. This is about my 20th company that I've had over this period. I mean, it's a lot of different people that have come through this company. And all of those people, I would say 99.5. That's, isn't that a radio station? Yeah. Go into the profession, even our children, go out of the youth company into a university program, or they go off to Hollywood, or they go to New York, or they go someplace and dance. And I think that is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be training these young people to move out into the world, not just as dancers, but as leaders, people who are leaders, not just people who do movement that you ask them to do. So I think of our company as young leaders, young dancers who lead. I think it's very important that we have that now, because it's very necessary in the culture that we're living in presently.
And I just don't want to be here just for 200 years. I think I want to be here forever. I mean, that's what I always think, and I think I believe in it. I'm always somebody who dreams, and I dream big. So I feel like I'm confident that Natya will be around, our legacy will be there. I believe strong, empowering students with the correct or good dancing, I would say, whether it's jazz or whether it's Spanish, whatever we do. I think it's in the foundation. It's in giving the students the right kind of training. And I believe that in our mission, the right kind of training is being given, and I hope that I'm able to train. We do train many dancers over the 40 years, and many of them have gone into being professional dancers. They are teaching in different cities in the United States, and I only hope that with Kritika absorbing so much in and out, staying here with me, absorbing this, and other students of mine would continue. And as Joel said, that it's in the training, it's in that which would continue our legacy through their leadership in promoting, and as Kritika rightly put, in not just learning our choreography or learning methodology, but in the vision of challenging that, in the vision of absorbing what my ideas have been, to just absorb different vibrations from the evolving environment wherever they're living, so that then they grow with that. But of course, definitely knowing the fundamentals of what is good dance, not just diluted impressions of dance.
How we approach the future will be how we are dealing with the history, and for me specifically, Joel's history, and how I preserve the original intention of the work, the meaning of the choreography, why it became a classic, why is El Gato still touching people today as it did in '92. So there's something that's the same in the movement from decade to decade. And so how do I keep that history intact and preserve that? And then on a larger scale, how do I do that with jazz dance? Because that's something that's becoming more dilute as time goes on. So how do I preserve the rich tradition that it is, and especially in Joel's style?
What are we doing to preserve or go forward? Is that the question?
To ensure your company's future.
Okay. So I'm going to be very administrative about this right now. We're spending a lot of time on knowledge transfer. And part of that goes for understanding everything that somebody needs to know when they're training, not only a student, but when they're training a trainer, when we're training a teacher. I think that's one big element of how we do things. But I think there's something else that's also happening as we go forward and as I find myself teaching my teachers. I was sitting in a class just this past week, and I was teaching an expressional item about how you show a parent's love towards a child. And I think a lot of it is experiential. And I was teaching him, and I've experienced being a parent because I'm a parent, but the student hasn't experienced being a parent. I found myself looking for other avenues of figuring out how to teach this person. And I think one of the biggest things right now that I am doing, that any teacher has to do, is to figure out how they need to teach someone in other ways. You can't just write it down. So as much knowledge transfer as we are doing, as much as I am learning and watching and learning by seeing what's happening in a classroom, even though I've experienced it enough, there are always going to be those questions. So when I teach and when I watch her teach, or I watch any one of these master teachers teach, there is going to be something that comes back to the second generation, which is we have to find our own answers. And I think one of the biggest elements is being strong in our foundation, which is what we're setting, making sure it doesn't dilute, which we're preserving and doing that to our fullest efforts. But having the confidence that we need to go forward, knowing what we know and finding our own vision to be able to pass it on, send that message out, and speak to the next generations who hold this art.
I'm conscious of the time, but there's so much to learn up here. So we will have time for one or two questions. Yeah, you can. Katie's coming at you with the mic.
Oh, it's battery's dead. Actually, it's still picking up. One or two questions, so.
Yes, I would just like to say I'm Deirdre Dawson. I have been in the dance community since 1974, educator, professional dancer, and as an administrator. We are missing one company in this particular venue today, and that is Muntu Dance Theater. They have been in existence over 40 years as well. So that I hope, it's a different genre of dance, but again, it is Chicago dance history as well. So I just wanted to bring that up, hoping that you will include them in whatever's going forward from here.
Other questions?
I would be curious to hear from anyone on the panel what, over the span of time that you've been involved in dance making and administration in Chicago, one thing that has become easier over that span of time, and or something that's become more of a challenge than it used to be.
One thing that's
It's easy because of the experience that we've had. It's very easy for me to go in on Saturdays during the day for the whole day. And after Irma and Jorge give all their critiques to the dancers, I like to hear what they have to say first. They say, do you have any comments? I have many. And so I ask the question to the dancers, do you remember this? Remember this? Those things have become a lot easier. Those things have become a lot easier. The difficulty is, as you get older, I mean, I think they make retirement so you can go to all your doctor's appointments, something like that. But it just takes a little more time because of physical restrictions sometimes.
I would say that for me, making dances has become much more easier, only because of the inspiration that I get from audiences that come to our shows and the funding that we receive, or the ticket sales that, when we perform at Harris and it becomes full, that makes me feel fantastic that I'm able to create. So I think over the years, lately, in the last decade, I would say that it's much more easier to put out challenging works there, even though I think, is it going to work or not? I mean, I'm much more confident. And those things have become easier. And I don't know what is more difficult. I don't know.
I will talk about a little bit about what is difficult. For me, it is the way to be able to communicate with a 21st century young person and versus a 20th century choreographer. I was trained, of course, in the 20th century. So people, with the advent of technology, I think that people think differently. They have a different attention span. They push a button instead of, to learn choreography on YouTube rather than come to class and learn choreography from plie, left hand on the bar, please. So I think that gap, finding that connection for me is challenging, and I'm looking for ways of how to break through to a 21st century manner of thinking, both choreographically and in terms of how I engage with people that are much younger than me, but that they get what they need from what I have, and then they can take it and do what they want to with it. So that's the hard part for me.
I second that. I really second that wholeheartedly. Never thought about it. That's really, you hit the nail on the head. Or am I speaking correctly? But I think that is wonderful what Joel said, and I feel that all the time, more and more. They go to the YouTube, they can just pick up any dance choreography. They just put something. They don't understand that their bodies are not trained. They don't go to the fundamental core of understanding the basic element, the basic emotion. They are not there to feel. They are not dancers. They're just movers. They really don't dance with passion. They don't have the feelings in them. And because they've never absorbed it in their bodies. So they haven't learned it from their mouth. They haven't spent enough time in the studios. And that's the problem. And they think they're choreographers, or they think they can put out something. What they do is cut and paste, basically.
Don't hold back.
You guys want to talk to that?
Go for it.
What gets easier, I think, with the more experience and with age is just saying whatever comes to your mind, right? It just sort of comes out now without. But I think what gets harder is having something of value to say.
That's good. I have nothing
Very
to
good,
say.
Jackie.
Thank you, Papa Joel.
No, really, I have nothing to say.
Okay, well, since we are short on time at this point anyway, I am going to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks to the Newberry, and most of all, thanks to these wonderful people up here. It's really been an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.